Pokemon Go is kicking off its season of Alola with its first ever Gen 7 wave in Pokemon Go. So we already have Alolan variants of Pokemon in the game, but we don't have Pokemon that aren't Alolan variants from the Alolan region. And yeah, we're getting injected with 23 new Pokemon from Gen 7. And in this video, I'm going to let you know which ones are good or interesting for PvP, all kinds of PvP. So buckle up, we're going to talk about the first wave of Gen 7. And if you're sitting back going, Ryan Swag, what about raids? Don't you ever talk about Pokemon that are good in raids? Well, none of these Pokemon are good in raids, except for one of them. So if you are raid starved in this content here, I will mention the one Pokemon that is good in raids, just for you guys. And just to make things simple, I'm going to be going down the line in Pokédex order, which starts us off with Dartrix here, the first stage evolution of Rowlet, which evolves into Decidueye. So why are we talking about Dartrix, not Decidueye? Well, you know, some of these mid-stage evolutions can actually be pretty good in PvP, especially the Great League PvP, and Dartrix is pretty interesting. So it's a grass-flying Pokemon. It's got Razor Leaf. Its other attack is Peck, so it's a Razor Leafer. When it comes to its stat product, it is worse than Tropius's, but it's better than Grotle, for instance, and Grotle is kind of known as being one of the tankier Razor Leafers. So I'd say it's tanky enough to be considered kind of tanky, right? And it's got Seed Bomb for that early activation charge move to do some auxiliary damage on things alongside the Razor Leaf. Now, it ain't no Leaf Blade, but what makes Dartrix really stand out to me is that it's got Brave Bird. When it comes to a lot of these Razor Leafers, they don't really give a whole lot of shield pressure, circumstances depending. The shield pressure they usually give is just based on the fact that they're hitting you with aggressive fast move damage, and if you don't shield the Leaf Blade or the Body Slam, for instance, then you have to shield it in order to survive. With this Brave Bird though, if you're not in that situation, I don't mind taking a Body Slam, I don't mind taking a Leaf Blade. You might mind taking a Brave Bird, right? That's some pretty big damage, same type attack bonus off the flying type. So I think Dartrix has some interesting utility in that respect. Is it going to be a household name? Is it going to take the meta by storm? I highly doubt it. Walrein exists, Zap Cannon, Registeel exists. But when it comes to cup formats, or if the Great League, waxes and wanes and changes in such a way where, Walrein isn't all over the place and, Zap Cannon, Registeel isn't all over the place, I think Dartrix has an interesting niche for itself in the meta as a Razor Leaf side grade. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for Decidueye. So Decidueye is the final stage of Rowlet here. It's a grass ghost type Pokemon, so it has a parallel with Trevenant, who's a ghost grass Pokemon, and they have basically the same stat product. So the stage is set for Decidueye to possibly be a cool Pokemon. And in the main series games, it can learn Leaf Blade, it can learn Shadow Claw, it can learn Shadow Ball. So it could be a more accessible Trevenant, maybe even a better Trevenant, so that's pretty cool. Unfortunately, its move pool is bad. It's astonishingly bad. They gave it Astonish. Astonish, if you're not familiar, is a super bad fast move in this game. It's like the fast move that you wish the Pokemon you liked didn't have, but they do have, and you're hoping and praying that Pokemon Go will one day buff it so that the Pokemon that you love that have Astonish could one day be good. Season 11, they said they're not going to be rebalancing any moves, so I guess we can hope and pray for Season 12 that they finally buff Astonish. But yeah, Decidueye's got Astonish. And then it also has Razor Leaf, which can be cool, but a lot of Razor Leafers that parallel Decidueye, just have better bulk or better moves to work with than what Decidueye does have. So even though Decidueye does have the Razor Leaf with the Brave Bird, it's less bulky than the Dartrix is, and then it also doesn't have the early activation, Seed Bomb. It's got Shadow Sneak and Energy Ball. I guess Shadow Sneak's a parallel enough for that idea, but the bulk really kind of kills the dream, in my opinion. So yeah, poor Decidueye. When it comes to the community day, it does have a signature move called Spirit Shackle or something like that, so that could shake things up and make it more interesting or competitive with Trevenant. They could one day buff Astonish and make it more interesting and competitive with Trevenant, but as it stands, yeah, Decidueye is just kind of here. So Dartrix. Next up, we have Litten in the Little League. This is going to sound pretty crazy. It's going to be hyper-specific and very meta-specific, so kind of buckle up here. And, I know that it's we're not even halfway in the video and I'm talking about crazy stuff. But, alright, back when we had Element Cup, the Little Cup where you couldn't have evolved Pokemon, it had to be pre-evolution Pokemon, and it was fire, water, and grass type Pokemon, Pansear actually had like an interesting niche in the meta over Vulpix as a fire type Pokemon, because if you used Pansear to fully farm down a Cottony, specifically, or I guess any other grass type that you could farm down in that respect, you could come out of that with like a double crunch or like a flame charge crunch, kind of ready to go. And this was kind of a big deal because the meta at the time, a lot of people were using Cottony with psychic type Pokemon, using confusion and stuff to just heavy fast move people down. So if you caught the Cottony with the Pansear, farmed it down, got to the double crunch, they bring in their Slowpoke or their Shadow Slowpoke, they have to shield both crunches or just get KO'd. So Pansear had an interesting little pocket of itself with that in that very specific meta, in that very specific situation. And I would have used Pansear if I had one, but it's a regional Pokemon. I don't know off the top of my head what region it's from. All I know is that I don't have one and I couldn't get one and I kind of wanted one. Well, Litten here is kind of like the international Pansear in that respect. Ember is different than Fire Spin, but when it comes to like the farm down of Cottony into the double crunch, it does that job like roughly as well as Pansear does, and it's got the double crunch, right? So fundamentally it could do roughly the same thing in a little bit of a different way, but similar enough of a way where it's kind of like this budget international Pansear type Pokemon. Now, will we have this specific set of circumstances that could benefit Pansear and Litten again in the future? I don't know, but just something a little crazy random tip to put in the back of your mind. Just know that it's there, and if the circumstances are right for this kind of situation again, you know that, hey, I don't have Pansear, but the Swagman told me Litten is roughly as good, slightly worse, but roughly as good. Alright, back to some more familiar territory and not crazy hyper-specific situations. We have Incineroar, the final evolution of Litten here, a fire-dark type Pokemon that has some pretty good parallels with Houndoom, a dark fire type Pokemon. So with Incineroar, it's got a better stat product, so better stats than Houndoom has, but I feel like its move pool is a little bit less, synergistic than what Houndoom has going on. We got Snarl, which is pretty good, Dark Pulse, which is okay. Then we got Flame Charge, which is pretty interesting. And you think charging up to Flame Charge more frequently is a good thing, and it kind of is, but because Snarl has such low base power and it's so slow on top of it, that the Flame Charge doesn't really ramp up the Snarl damage like it would ramp up Incinerate damage. And one thing that's really whack about Incineroar is, despite being named Incineroar, it doesn't have Incinerate in its move pool. Like, it can't learn Incinerate in the main series games. So as it stands right now, unless something changes, Incineroar can't learn Incinerate in Pokemon Go, which is just kind of really goofy to me. But it's bad news for Incineroar because right now its move pool is somewhat asynergistic. Now you could be thinking, Ryan Swag, when I see Houndoom in a cup, usually it's just spamming Fire Fang, usually it's even Shadow Houndoom to spam the Fire Fang more aggressively. And Incineroar also has Fire Fang too, and ramping up the Fire Fang could be a good thing with the Flame Charge to help you just like burn down an opponent. And I can kind of see that, but at the same time, I think Houndoom's moveset is a little bit more catered towards that cup kind of format, hyper-specific use, because it's got Crunch. What I mean is after you Fire Fang down the thing that you're going to counter swap the Fire Fang down, you want to throw your charge move and then keel over, right? So if you're going to throw one charge move, Crunch is probably the better charge move to throw because you can get that debuff chance. And then the lower bulk kind of, works in your favor because they get less, farm action on you before they bring you down compared to the thicker Incineroar. So, I mean, obviously at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the cup format. You're probably not going to use these Pokemon outside of cups. So whichever Pokemon ends up being more favored for those specific set of circumstances will be the better Pokemon. I don't think Incineroar is like terrible in that respect. It is a good cup Pokemon. It gets a seat at the table for cup Pokemon, just like Houndoom does, but on paper I feel like Houndoom's looking a little bit better. So next up we have Primarina, a water fairy type Pokemon, the final evolution of Popplio, and it's got Charm and Waterfall, so water fairy Pokemon with Charm, it's got Charm, it's a Charm user, right? So when it comes to being a Charm user, you stand out by having, good bulk, or good moves, or good secondary typing, and the bulk does appear to be less than the the benchmark charmer Sylveon. We do have a lower stat product. When it comes to the move pool, we got Hydro Pump, Moonblast, and Psychic. Sylveon has the earliest activation with the Psyshock, so another a little point for Sylveon there. And then when it comes to the typing, Water subtyping is pretty good. That is a good defensive type. So I think that defensive type is going to be the driving wheel to make Primarina stand out compared to the other charm users in the game. Now things get even more interesting for Primarina when you bump it up to the Master League. In the Master League, Sylveon still has a higher stat product, but the gap between them in power is, significantly lower, and I think that the water subtyping can help it stand out even more compared to like Sylveon and Togekiss up in the Master League, and I think Primarina could make an interesting splash in the Master League PvP, both like, Premier Cup versions, classic versions, open versions. I think Primarina has some clout there. And it'll get even better when it gets Hydro Cannon. Doesn't have it right now, but Psyshock is 45 energy cost, Hydro Cannon is 40 energy cost, so Primarina will have the good defensive subtype, and it will have the earlier activation charge move, and then Hydro Cannon's like busted, it's super strong, with a same type attack bonus on top of it because it's a water type Pokemon. So I think once Primarina does get Hydro Cannon, like in 2024, if the meta doesn't change significantly until then, I think the Hydro Cannon Primarina will be a huge force to be reckoned with across all leagues of PvP. But right now, Primarina, interesting spice pick for a Great League, might be decent-ish, not so much spice, but a little bit more of a solid pick for Ultra League PvP formats. And then in Master League, it might actually end up being one of the more optimal charmers in the format. I mean, it's like the first charmer that can manage Kyogre fairly well, so that's pretty big. Before we move on, I do want to give a little bit of a shout out to Brionne, the Pokemon that comes before Primarina. It is a mono water type Pokemon, but it does have Disarming Voice, which is the best fairy type charge move in the game, and it's got Charm. It's not Stab, but it's got Charm, right? And it also has Water Gun, which is pretty decent. And it's got some pretty okay stat product going on too for Great League PvP. I don't think this thing will be a household name. I don't even think it'll be Spice. I think it will be a cup specific Pokemon, and it may never even see its day to be used in a cup. But I'm just saying, Charm Raichu has showed up in the past as like a crazy wild spice pick in specific formats, and I think Brionne isn't a Pokemon that you should sleep on for that either. I mean, you could totally sleep on it and not miss out on anything at all, but if you're going to be like super high-end about PvP, you're going to want to keep that high-rank Brionne, starred in the back of your inventory there, just in case. The charge moves, aside from Disarming Voice, are pretty bad, so, but it could happen. Oh, shucks, and I forgot to mention, Primarina here, the final stage evolution of, like, Brionne and Populo, that's the Pokemon that can be good in raids. It's got Charm, it's got Moonblast, it's, like, roughly on par with, I think, Sylveon, as far as the raid meta is concerned. If it got Dazzling Gleam, then it would be on the level of like Togekiss and Gardevoir, but it doesn't have Dazzling Gleam. So it's like, if you like some variety in your fairy type raid attackers, then yeah, Primarina isn't a bad raid attacker. Then we got Gumshoes, Evil Toucan Sam, and the Daisy Chain here. And I'm just going to save some time and let you know that they're all not great in PvP. They're all unique species with their family and stuff like that, and their whole families, the ones that do have family, because the daisy chain thing over here is just itself, yeah, not that great in PvP. So, moving on. Then next up we have Rockruff and the 3 Lycanrocs. All the Lycanrocs are all Lycanroc, but you can tell that they are all a little bit different, or maybe quite different from each other. You have Lycanroc Midday, you got Lycanroc Dusk, and then you have Lycanroc Midnight. In Pokemon Go, to evolve the midday one, you just have to evolve it during the daytime hours. For the midnight one, you just have to evolve it during nighttime hours. And then when it comes to the dusk one, the one in the middle here, right now in the current Game Master, in the current game data, there is no way to evolve it. So I guess we'll find out in the future. Maybe they'll do like a community day or something. We don't know right now, but we will find out one day, right? And then when it comes to these 3, which ones are meta viable? Well, only one is meta viable, and that would be the Midnight form. So Lycanroc Midnight form is a rock mono type Pokemon that has Rock Throw and Counter. So it can be directly compared to Sudowoodo, which is a mono rock type Pokemon with a better stat product that also has Counter and Rock Throw. Key difference is Sudowoodo does have a quote-unquote better move pool with Rock Slide and Earthquake for, perfect coverage, stab damage on the Rock Slide, early activation, compared to Lycanroc's Stone Edge, which is a bit slower. But I think Lycanroc, despite on paper looking like this as a worse Sudowoodo, isn't exactly worse than Sudowoodo because it does have the unique attacks. It's got Psychic Fangs to debuff the enemy's defenses, and it's got Crunch to do a different kind of neutral damage, different effectiveness profile, and also has the potential to debuff the opponent's defense. Sudowoodo, you only see it in cup formats, so you're probably only going to see Lycanroc in cup formats as well, and then depending on how that cup format is shaped, what the targets are in the meta, or how you're going to be utilizing the Sudowoodo or Lycanroc, Lycanroc could be better than Sudowoodo just based on those circumstances. So while you can look at it on paper and go, oh man, look at that, lower stat product, oh, doesn't have Rock Slide, doesn't have perfect coverage going on, that's kind of gross. Well, it does do the same job, but it does it differently enough where it is a different enough of a Pokemon, and it's a side grade. It could do this job, but better under specific circumstances. And I guess if you are looking to do a Sudowoodo ABB type team, I mean, what's a better double B partner than one that's like almost precisely like you, but slightly different in some special ways, So I think Lycanroc Midnight Form has some serious clout here. Then we come to our big meta winner here, Kommo-O, which is making a splash across all 3 leagues as being a really good Pokemon. I kind of have my doubts of it in Master League PvP, but in Great League and Ultra League PvP, this thing's looking pretty powerful. So it's a Dragon Fighting type Pokemon. It's got Dragon Tail, which is like an actually good fast move now. It's on par with Dragon Breath. It's like the same move, but slower, right? But same damage overall. There's a lot of debates on which move ends up being better for Pokemon that got both. So Dragon Tail's good. And then we got Dragon Claw, which is early activation, spammy type charge move. And then on top of it, we've got Close Combat. So Dragon type Pokemon, they get walled a lot by Steel type Pokemon, such as Bastiodon, Galarian, Stunfisk. Do you think they want to deal with a Close Combat? Well, the way things are looking on paper right now, no, they don't. And Kommo-O is a Dragon type Pokemon that can consistently deal with these Steel type Pokemon, which, makes it good in PvP. For its other coverage attack, it's got Flamethrower, which could be useful in specific circumstances, but I think Dragon Claw Close Combat is going to be the bread and butter. And goofily enough, it also has Poison Jab, which is probably always going to be worse than Dragon Tail, but if you're feeling super cheeky, you can defeat Azumarill in the 2-shield situation, straight Poison Jab. So it'd be spicy as all get out, but the Poison Jab does have some utility here. Now, I don't like to use rankings to validate a Pokemon, but Kommo-O is looking good in the rankings here too, so you can see Great League PvP, 1-shield situation. It's able to overcome Bastiodon, Stunfisk, Umbreon, Sableye. That's all really good stuff. Not every Dragon Breath user can do all this stuff consistently, especially when it comes to, the Steel-type Pokemon. Now, being fighting type is pretty bad. Any psychic move that hits it is going to hit it harder. Fairy type attacks, doubly super effective. But I think Kommo-O overall is in a pretty good spot when it comes to all this. And then you can see the same thing in Ultra League PvP. Kommo-O, number 15. Now, once again, rankings don't fully validate a Pokemon's goodness, but it's able to take on Giratina Altered Form and Stunfisk still. So that's really good as a Dragon type Pokemon. Dark types and Steel types are creeping up and dominating the Open Ultra League in a lot of ways. So having a way to manage both of them looks pretty good. Now, I think I am a little bit more standoffish towards it in the Ultra League though, because Ultra League does invite a lot of Charm users fairly often in my experience. So this guy's got nothing to do against them, I guess, unless you're using Poison Jab. But yeah, there are some risks to the Kommo-O when it comes to Ultra League PvP. And then when it comes to Master League Classic, I don't really believe in the Kommo-O that much for this format, mostly because you're not beating Dialga. So what's the point? You're the fighting dragon Pokemon with Close Combat, and you can't beat Dialga in the 1-shield situation, so I don't have a whole lot of faith for Kommo-O when it comes to the big leagues here. But I'm not saying that Kommo-O is terrible in the big leagues either. It could work out pretty well in the Master League Premier Cup or something like that. And let's not forget Kommo-O's pre-evolution, Hakamo-o. Hakamo-o, basically the same idea, same type, better stat product, so more bulk. Doesn't have Close Combat though. We got Brick Break, right? So Brick Break is a pretty bad move. It's not so bad that Dragon Claw is like a better attack against dark types. Brick Break will deal more damage against dark type Pokemon. But the main selling point to Hakamo-o is that it's got the higher stat product, which means in some metas, some specific matchups, it could be better than Kommo-o. But when it comes to like the bread and butter, open meta, all sorts of situations, it's kind of hard to compete with close combat. Like, a little over 100 stat product, I don't think that's beating out close combat access, especially with, what limited move pool they have to work with here. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Hakamo-o because it's not looking terrible. So I don't know if you're doing some ABB stuff or if you notice some matchup is handled better with Hakamo-o's bulk and it's like a limited cup format. This is a Pokemon worth keeping your eyes peeled for too. And then finally we have Tapu Koko, or as I like to call it, Legendary Dedenne, because they're both electric fairy type Pokemon. Is Tapu Koko better than Dedenne? I don't think so, man. I mean, look at these stat products, right? Dedenne's thicker than Tapu Koko. But not only that, but Tapu Koko is like extremely fragile, right? It's got Volt Switch, which is good for like the Glass Cannon type roll. It's got Brave Bird, which is good for the Glass Cannon type roll. It doesn't have Stab though, a little awkward, but still good nonetheless. But does it have Wild Charge or Discharge, an early activation charge move? Maybe Disarming Voice, question mark? I don't know if it can learn it. No, we got Thunderbolt and Dazzling Gleam and Thunder to work with, which are all a little bit too slow for this kind of Glass Cannon Pokemon. Like, a little bit too slow and not enough cannon for the Glass Cannon. So, from the simulations I've run so far, Tapu Koko does appear to be like falling a bit short all over the place. It could maybe get better with like a move pool upgrade. Maybe just getting Wild Charge could be enough to make Tapu Koko good. But as it stands right now, it's just living in Dedenne's shadow. I mean, honestly, should we really be calling Tapu Koko Legendary Dedenne, or should we be calling Dedenne Legendary Tapu Koko? And then when it comes to Araquanid and Toxapex, two of the most revolutionary Pokemon for Great League PvP and possibly Ultra League, well, they're not in this first wave. And neither is Mimikyu, so they will be in future waves. Hopefully those future waves come sooner rather than later, and we'll talk about these Pokemon when we get their movesets, when they're finally brought in. At any rate, that wraps up this first wave of Gen 7 Pokemon for PvP. If you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. It's just kind of awkward too, because we have Torracat, the pre-evolution to Incineroar, and that thing has Crunch, and Flame Charge, and Ember, so it's like, what gives Incineroar? Now you're a bipedal instead of a quadrupedal, and you just forget how to bite things? I don't think that's true, because you got Fire Fang, so you're still using that mouth of yours. Why can't you keep Crunch? Why? Why Dark Pulse?